Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit here, back again with Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. We're on episode 5, and in the last episode, it has been a while since I've recorded this, but, I feel like it's been just over a month. Since I recorded the last episode. So, anyway, from what I remember, and obviously I've got my notes here, so I can, it helps. So basically the main points were, Mob and Reagan went to see a rich client where he had gathered a bunch of different psychics and stuff because shit was going down within his manor house, and he believed that his daughter was possessed. Turns out she was, and that she was possessed by a guy called Megami Keiji, who was a psychic 40 years ago. And because he was sort of that powerful, he was able to, he's basically the scariest, sort of spirit I guess we've come across in Mob Psycho so far. And the show is definitely getting darker as well, much darker. So yeah, the girl that he was inhabiting, Minori, fucking bloody poor girl. She's in a right state right now because the guy's been, he was contorting her and stuff like that, and yeah, it wasn't nice. But Mob went in his own spirit form and then entered into the same space where Mogami was, inhabiting, and they had a little bit of a fight between the two. Mogami did come out on top, for now anyway, and he's sort of forced Mob into living life with a change of perspectives, I think. So he's basically worked out a sort of scenario where Mob does his day-to-day thing, except he doesn't have psychic powers. So it's forcing Mob to think of from a different, see things from a different perspective, and hopefully sort of I guess changes his stance on things. I mean, it's something that has been throughout this season has been cropping up with Mob, and he's sort of how he's supposed to feel about stuff. It's been cropping up a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And yeah, he was talking about how this psychic powers are linked to the person's emotions and stuff like that, and how the stronger emotions are actually the ones that require suffering. So anything that is sort of considered a negative emotion would harbour more energy than a positive one. So generally speaking, it's kind of the reason why Megami Keiji was the way that he was, because he was able to get more powerful by being that way inclined. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I don't think there's anything else to really talk about. You can click the link down in the description to obviously go watch the reaction, because obviously it's on Vimeo, to avoid copyright essentially on YouTube that normally ends up happening. And also, if you do want to go watch the full-length TR reaction that is completely unedited, then you can do. My Patreon link is in the description below as well for full-length TR access, and then you'll be able to watch the full thing unedited if you want. But if not, that's absolutely fine. I'll also have episode 6 up to date as well on Patreon. So if you do want to go watch episode 6 immediately, then you can do, and become an early access to our Patreon. You'll be able to go watch that right now. If not, just wait until this Wednesday, and the episode 6 will be out. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. So we're just going to get in episode 5 and see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, so episode 5. Right, well, Jesus Christ, that fucking that fight scene was a lot to take in, because it got to the point where I didn't even know what the fuck, what was where. At one point, Mob got smacked up, and he hit it must have been some debris that was, I guess, that was flying through the air. I think the thing was the fact that it wasn't within a real world; it was within a sort of So as the fight sort of went on, it kind of just devolved into just fucking nothing. I said it once at one point, it looked like hell on earth. It was just the end of the world, But yeah, basically it was the fight of like positive emotions actually overcoming negative emotions for a change, which is obviously a like a big like it's something that has taken place in other shows, you know, alike, where obviously you overcome like the sort of negative emotions. And some of that happens in anime a lot because that's the topics that they tend to address. And I think actually at the end of last episode, I actually talked about how negative emotions actually do tend to be the ones that like that are like more powerful. Like even if I'm talking about like not within the context of the show with psychic emotions and stuff, but like in general, the ones that affect you the most tend to be the negative emotions. Because it's so easy to focus on the negative all the time. As opposed to keeping a positive sort of outlook. So yeah, that was cool. And also the fact of like they found a way to incorporate Mob going to 100 and the emotion that comes out is positive, is a positive emotion. I was wondering if this was going to be the case because I think back in like season 1, and I think it would have been the fight with Tereki, right? And I think because he had the anger, the rage one, and then he had like the sadness and whatnot. And I think I'd said something along the lines of, I wonder if it could ever work for like happiness. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how would it work? Because the fights, like, or I guess like the visual representation of how the fight goes tends to correlate with the emotion that he is letting out in that moment. And you could tell like by this was my favorite visual art style of Mob actually when he went 100 in this one, because of his eyes. They were more brighter than usual. I guess if we recall back to what was it? Was it like episode 3 of season 1 where he had the rage one? I can't remember. I think it was, right? Yeah, I think it was. And his eyes were like dark red, and obviously his emotion on the face, correlated with his emotion as well. And then sadness, like very, like tears and everything, and the colour had sort of like drained from him and stuff. And then with the happiness thing, like the eyes were so. It was the eyes mostly that was so vibrant, but it's mad, like just how the subtlest changes are so apparent because of, like, that's how it works in such a great way. When you make the art style the way it is, so like obscure, but so like so out there and very. It's very fucking. It's crazy because the art style itself is very expressive, right? And I love when you can be so creative with something that you do the opposite with your main character and make them like the most blandest fucking character. And then in these moments that these short moments that you allow for his emotions to come forth, like like he just looks like a fucking like a badass, you know what I mean? Like just looks so fucking cool. And it's the subtle things just become so apparent because you spend so much time with him when he's just Mob. And when his emotions do come out, like you see it, and it's not something that has to be like expressed through like they do it through the art style, even the voice actor. Like I love the fact that he essentially has to do, it's like doing two characters for him, because when he's Mob, he just has to act all drained and everything's like monotone, and there's no real expression within the tone of voice. And then it's crazy. It's almost like listening to a different voice actor when the emotions come out, and he's like, the inflection of his voice changes, and it sounds more, like they really, this fight, and the fact that it was like a positive emotion, like really, like I think it was probably the best representation of the emotion that he was giving out, with it being positive. I don't know what the positive, like I don't know what the emotion exactly what it was. I think it was courage, because the narrator does tend to like say the word, but like put it within like an exposition type monologue type thing, and like one of the last words that he says tends to be the sort of emotion that is being represented. So I think it was courage, but correct me if I'm wrong. But the fact that it was a very, very positive one, like it felt like he was happy, like it felt like very positive energy from him. And it's the contrast and juxtaposition I think that this show does the best. I think like the contrast between, like I said, making Mob completely like blank and bland until those moments, the juxtaposition, the contrast of how different it is, the art style, everything like that, so that it it really is a smart way to do things, because it forces you to it almost like forces you to feel a certain way, like you automatically enjoy like those moments because you don't have them as much, like you're not used to them because you don't get them all the time. It's like what I say with like other shows, like what can I like right, Bakugo, for example, My Hero Academia, right? He is so in your face all of the time, that the moments that you get with him that he's sincere and everything like that are more impactful, because you don't get a lot of them, and those little moments, that means they have more of an impact. And it's exactly the same with this. So making your main character, out of all the characters in the show, the one that is completely bland, when he does get those moments, it allows him to shine a hell of a lot more. So it fits within the narrative, like within the narrative of the story so well. So it's not a surprise that this show like is as popular as it is, because I think he did a real good job. Like, this is his masterpiece. This is it's great. I love it. So yeah. Mogami had taken him into a sort of subconscious world where Mob was not aware of kind of what was going on until Dimple came in and allowed it as well. Matsu actually helped him into that, which is interesting. Interesting that he actually like decided to do that. Makes me think of like these side characters, like the 7th Division of Claw, making reoccurring appearances, actually don't have any real ill will towards the characters anymore, like Mob and Reagan and stuff. Seemingly it doesn't seem that way. In the opening you have the guy with the katana, so I'm guessing he'll turn up again, and we'll see exactly how they interact. But yeah, Mogami had took them into the real world, and so I was wondering actually when the reaction was going on, if the narration that Mogami was talking about, either that was for our benefit or it was actually something that was affecting Mob, and it turns out that it actually was. So it was like a subconscious thing that was in his mind. It wasn't something that he was necessarily hearing, but it was kind of like just a thing that was. I'd probably imagine it as everything that Mogami was saying, Mob was hearing, but it was almost like Mob was thinking it himself. Like he was thinking it within his own voice, in his own head, and almost monologuing to himself. That's how I would probably describe it. I love the fact that it started out with Mogami basically saying that this is the real world, because when he mentioned that, like, this isn't like, you know, this isn't like you know, the society that you see. It was almost like, I almost saw it as like a meta sort of comment, basically, almost like a little jab maybe at other shows where it's like, oh, like, these things are so unrealistic. Like, this isn't how, you know, this isn't how things happen in real life. It makes me wonder if the creator was possibly bullied as a kid when he was in school, and maybe like that's where he's gotten this from. So like maybe like first-hand experience. I could almost imagine that being the case. It doesn't have to be, I suppose. Like he could just be, you know, he could just be like not be ignorant and realize that this is what real life is actually like. I mean, a lot of us know that real life isn't fairy tale, is it? It's not happiness all the time. Generally, more often than not, it's all about fucking, you know, it's all about overcoming adversity all of the time. You know, and you know, it's generally not happy-go-lucky all the time, and it's actually more on the opposite side. You know, I'm sure like everyone has their own, you know, things, but generally, for the majority of people around the world, it's normally, you know, either you can kind of get away with going through like a normal day, you know, like, for example, the majority of people that work 9 to 5 throughout the week and get that like one day off through the week to sort of just, you know, do what they want to do, and that's their sort of, that's their happiness throughout the week, and then they have to go back to work. So normally it works the other way around. You know, but so, you know, we're not all ignorant. We realize that the real world is, you know, a lot more cruel. But I realized that I think what Mogami was actually doing, I was thinking like, he's actually exaggerated it a bit, like, you know, because I was thinking that the whole point of what he was trying to do was to try and turn Mob into sort of his, you know, like he said, like a sympathizer, right? So someone who understands him and can now like sort of work with him to do the same shit that he was doing. So it wasn't an actual representation of what the real world was. Of course, the real world is cruel and everything like that, but everything that he was doing, he was purposefully, like, because he was in charge of what the world was doing. He was able to create it the way that he wanted. So, like, over every day, he would consistently make Mob's life a living hell. The likes of Ritsu just walking by on the bridge, that wouldn't have happened. I mean, I guess it would be presumptuous of me to say that, you know, Ritsu would like, if things had been different, Ritsu would have went that way. But I don't see it. So yeah, I think Mogami was intentionally exaggerating it and just saying this is what the real world's actually like. But, you know, they were in there for 6 months, so it's kind of like the fucking, the name escapes me now. Fuck. What's it called? It's where, like, where they were in a certain thing, that they were in there for 6 months. Outside, it would have been like a few hours or something, right? I can't fucking remember, man. It's in bloody Dragon Ball Z. It's actually in Bleach as well. When they're in between realms, you know, time moves slower within there. So when, like, you know, when they're passing through, if they were to stay in there, come out, you know, yeah, as they are. But you know, being in there for 6 months, it's crazy. Like, he suffered through that for 6 months, and he came out like and doubled down, just completely doubled down on what it was before. It's like, oh well, I've got to be nicer then, you know. I love it. So yeah, so he was talking about Megami was talking about how he was he was struggling with because his mother had something wrong with him. They couldn't tell what it was. It turns out what it was because all because of Megami, because of the shit that he was doing. He was basically creating this like so much of a negative atmosphere of the shit that he was doing that it was actually like sort of congregating like a sort of negative fucking energy and spiritual force around the mother that was actually affecting her physically and ended up killing her, and she ended up becoming an evil spirit because of it, which is crazy. And yeah, it was an actual representation of Minori as well, which is something I completely wasn't. I mean, I was sympathizing with her before. I was like, because I was just seeing a little girl, and obviously because we didn't know her character before, it was hard. I guess hard to pinpoint exactly like who she was, and I just assumed that she was a very nice a very nice girl, and it turns out that no, she was actually one of those. Like that's the reason he was talking about how he when he became an evil spirit, he did things to the evil people, and he affected those people. So that was the reason why he took Minori as a vessel, because she was one of those people. But thanks to Mob again, just like with what's her name, Emmy, right? Yeah, just like Emmy. I mean, Emmy wasn't all that bad to begin with anyway. She was just hanging around with the wrong people. But it's kind of like just changing their views and changing the way that they are because of what Mob has done. You know what I mean? So the fact is that in this episode he says that, other people can change too. It's definitely like a big topic that is happening throughout this season. And fucking every episode of this season, man, is just like, it's just so deep. You know what I mean? Like back in season 1, you know what I mean? Like every episode, it was pretty lighthearted until it got to like episode like maybe 5. But then even then, like surrounding it, there was still like lightness in it. I feel like there hasn't been a lot in this season so far, but I mean, it is what it is. Still love it. Because the fact is that they're able to take, something as what you would think is as lighthearted as this, and then make it so deep. Again, like I was talking about before, the contrast, like the juxtaposition, like it's so easy to judge. It'll be so easy to judge this sort of anime in episode 1 and be like, oh, this is what's going to be for the rest, But then you get these episodes, and like it just there's so much content within, like so many talk points. It's great. What else? Yeah, so Mob got taken over by that unknown thing again. And like I said in the reaction, I said this back in season 1, episode 5 as well, when he got taken over the first time, that I think it's something else. Mogami even described it as a vessel as well, like Mob being like, what was the quote? Like, Mob is no longer a vessel or something like that. I feel like he has to be, there has to be something within him that is also like, it wouldn't be something like Mogami. It can't be. There's two ways I think of this, of like how I think this would work. So I think that either the thing that is inside Mob I wouldn't even know whether to call it evil or not, but it's so powerful, yet so like Mob is as well, so he can contain it to a degree. It's only when he really becomes unconscious that it breaks loose. Or it's not evil at all, and it's it only comes out when they're in like real need of it. it's one of the two. But I truly think that it has to be like there has to be something in there. Otherwise, there would otherwise the show would have to really explain itself, because it's when he's unconscious that thing comes out. If he's not conscious, then it shouldn't work. Like, it shouldn't really be doing anything. So yeah, there's definitely something, and if that is the case, I'm glad I picked it up back in season 1. So yeah, that's cool. The father survived. I have no idea how. Didn't he get like a fucking impaled? Jeez. He must have missed all these vital organs, I guess. But yeah, that's nuts. And yeah, I mean, Mob's gaining quite the female following now. He's got Emmy, Minori, even Subome. Like recognize what Mob was trying to do, like back in episode 1 as well, right? When he was helping out Emmy, she like turned up and whatnot at one point. And then obviously you've got the girl who is set up the religious cult thing, right? For Mob. So yeah, he's definitely, you know, that's the thing, is like when he's saying in this episode about how other people can change too, it's like what he doesn't seem to realise that he's the one causing them to change, you know. So, but he's humble, you know. You'll not point it out himself. And yeah, that was nuts. So yeah, I don't think there's really anything else to talk about. So yeah, I'm going to get straight into episode 6 after this. Again, if you do want to go see my reaction to episode 6 right now, you can do by going over to my Patreon and becoming an early access tier patron. Or you can just wait until Wednesday. It'll be Wednesday the 11th. Is that right? Yeah, Wednesday the 11th. And episode 6 will come out for the YouTube general public then. But this Wednesday there will be episode 7 and 8 on Patreon for early access as well. So if you want to get access to them too, like as soon as possible, then you can do that. There's also full length as well, $10 a month. You can get access to the full unedited reactions to this show, the Promised Neverland when that comes back, and My Hero Academia, and whatnot. And there are other tiers there where you can pay to have certain shows react to. So if you want me to react to a show, then you can do by looking at those tiers and seeing what they offer. There's also Discord as well, so you can get over there if you want. And yeah, that is all I've got. So thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.